Hello, welcome in and welcome back to my channel. My name is Deb from DG Reads, and it's time to get into my reading for the Magical Readathon. The Magical Readathon, brought to us by Gia Book Roast, is one of my favorite readathons. I've been participating since Orilium started, and this is my final semester reading for my Alchemist calling. And I've created, I think, a pretty well stacked TBR. It's definitely not a short one, but I am looking forward to all of the books. With a little bit of a caveat that I've already made at least one change to the TBR. This particular vlog won't cover all of my reading for the readathon. I'm definitely trying to aim to get as many books as possible into various vlogs throughout the month. I am also participating in the Readathon Rebellion, brought to us by Mel at Melanor Reads, and some of my books will cross over there. I am working on another installment of my Architect series, and I think some of my arcs may wind up fitting into this. So I'm going to be continuously reading throughout the month, but I did want to be able to highlight some of the books I put onto my Magical Readathon TBR that didn't also fit in other things. So let's start with the change up, because of course I'm going to make a change. One of the hardest prompts for me to find a book for was to find a book with vertical text on the spine. And I wound up picking a mystery that had the potential to work. Turns out the copy I got from the library didn't work, but I still think since a version exists out there with a vertical text, it would have worked. But I started reading it and I just wasn't in the mood for kind of a slow, older mystery. So I decided to go back to my shelves and do some more looking. And I'm glad I did, because I am having a much better time with the book that I found to read instead. And that is Immortal by Sue Lynn Tan. This is a Fairy Loot edition that I have. Really, really pretty, of course. And it has Immortal spelled out vertically on the spine, so it works perfectly for this. I am currently about 30% of the way into this, and I decided to go ahead and stop and do my initial thoughts here because we are about to go into part 2 of the book, so it felt like a natural breaking point. This is a romantasy, I think you would qualify this as, and it is an Asian-inspired fantasy. It is following Lien, and she is a very fragile young woman. She has an illness that keeps her from being able to fully participate in life. Her grandfather is her staunch protector and looks out for her at every turn. He winds up finding a way to make her well again, but it really means a big sacrifice, and we wind up losing him, and she rises to power. She is determined to get kind of a revenge on the gods for what they did to her grandfather. She is determined to figure out kind of their weaknesses, the immortals, these gods, and this starts her down a path of kind of an attraction between herself and the god of war. But things don't go the typical direction with this. Without getting into spoilers, there are turns I did not expect coming already at this point, and that's why I think going into part 2, I'm not sure where the story is going to take this. I am liking the world building in here, learning about the immortals, learning about kind of the magic, what was behind her kind of healing that her grandfather was able to do with her, and I'm really excited to see what winds up going on in here going further. I just love this beautiful edition. I'm glad I was able to pick it up, and I was glad that I found a book that I was going to be more excited to keep reading for this prompt. So with that, I'm going to keep going on this one. I'll let you know how it goes and check in with you later. I've finished up Immortal, and overall I did really enjoy this one. I think it had a lot of features that I did really like. It was entertaining. The world building was really cool. I liked the concept of these gods and these mortals and the kind of battle between the immortals and the mortals, the elements of magic that connect them and that also drive some of the battle between them going on in here. It worked really well for me. There are some tropes to the romance that I didn't love in the second half of this book quite as much. I can't really say what it is because it would be extremely spoilery, and obviously I don't want to do that. But overall, I still had a good time with this one. I don't go into these books with romance being my top priority, so in that regard, it worked for me, and I think I'm landing on a 4 with this. I think I liked the characters. I liked some of the kind of dynamics between them. We didn't quite get the banter I wanted, and it kind of makes sense with some of the reveals later in the book, the way things went in here, but overall, I think I still had a good time with it. This is an author I definitely can appreciate her writing and her kind of world building, so I will pick up more from her in the future. And it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous edition, so I'm happy to have enjoyed it enough to keep it on my shelves. So with that, I will check back in with you when I continue reading later. I am now halfway into The Unworthy by Augustina Bazterrica. This is translated, and the translator is not on the cover, but I do remember it being translated. Translated by Sarah Moses, and this is a gifted copy I received from Scribner. They included a bookmark, I guess you would call it, Are You Unworthy? And this one has me kind of confused on how I'm thinking of it so far. This is set in a world where climate disaster has really struck, and our main character in here is living as a cloistered nun type person. This is a society that is cut off. It is all, as best I can tell, women, and they are very closed in terms of who they will allow in. There's sickness, there's illness, there's men outside, and when people come looking for help, there's a risk of danger that if they let someone in, that person could infect them. And that's the gist I'm getting from it. This is a society where within this cloister, is that the right word? Within this group, there are levels. It's very political, lower level, higher level, potentially being chosen to become enlightened. And our main character is definitely on the lower end of the spectrum, and she wants to be elevated. She doesn't really have a lot of knowledge of what her own background is or how she came to be here or the wider world, really. I think it seems like in general we're not getting the bigger picture of that, and I kind of would like to know more of what's outside, but I'm guessing maybe there's a reason for this. And then someone else comes in and she's kind of involved in this process. It's such a short book, I don't want to say too much, but everything I'm saying is touched on a little bit, at least in the synopsis, so I don't feel like I've gone too far. But this new person, of course, is going to shake things up, make her ask questions. She is writing her life story, which is something that's forbidden. It's not something she's allowed to do, but she's finding scraps of paper and writing in whatever way she possibly can find to do so, and hiding it and keeping it hidden. And I'm really intrigued to see where this is going. It's very fever dreamy at times. It's a little bit confusing at times. I am not sure how I'm going to feel about this in the end, but at this point, I'm about halfway through and I'm at least intrigued to keep going and figure it out. I think if it was a much longer book, I probably would lose interest, but I think it's going to hold my attention for the length of the extra, 90 pages or so I have left. So I will let you know once I finished and let you know how it wound up. Hello friends, I have updates for you on my magical reading, and it's been going pretty well, mostly. I finished up The Unworthy by Augustina Bazterrica, and this one just didn't hit for me. I thought it would. The creepy cult kind of convent setting seemed like it would work for me, but I think we don't get enough of a picture of what's going on in the world that they are cutting themselves out from. We get commentary about the world, about women, about religion, about kind of their limitations in the setting. There's a lot of commentary that I think hit well enough, but I think I just wanted the bigger picture of this world, the story. The woman that we're following doesn't really even know her own backstory for much of the novel, and I think it just left a little too many unknowns for me. So I think this one's landing at a 2.5, unfortunately for me. Thankfully, it was a quick enough read, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. I did want to finish it because I was curious to see if we would get answers, and we get a little bit. The end picks up a little bit, but just not quite enough to feel very satisfying for me. And then I figured I would mention here, but I'm not going to have a lot of commentary on it unless it goes really in a weird direction. I am slowly making my way through The Angel of Indian Lake. I'm really enjoying being back in this world, back in Jade's head, kind of this mix of her horror obsession and the real horrors that are starting back up around her. The kind of creepiness of this setting, of this town, of this lake, all going really well for me, but it is book 3 in a series, so there's not a whole heck of a lot I feel like I can say about the plot and so forth without getting into things that might spoil books 1 or 2. So having a good time with this one. And then last but not least, I am halfway into No Rest for the Wicked by Rachel Louise Adams. This is my book for animal studies because it is the author's debut book. This one is following a woman named Dolores. She left home years ago and never looked back. She cut off her family. She cut off everything from this town that she grew up in called Little Horton in Wisconsin. It is a town that loves Halloween. They do Halloween up big, but they also have a history of catastrophes and tragedies happening on Halloween. And just in general, this town has a lot of people who go missing or who die, or it seems like a lot for a little town. And she's still harboring these kind of feelings of bitterness against where she grew up. She had her father there, her mother died, but she had a stepmother, she had two step siblings, one of whom she never met because she was born after Dolores left home. And she and her father were close, it seems like, but haven't talked since she left. We don't really know the full story of what exactly made her leave. At the beginning of the story, she gets a call from the FBI that her father has gone missing. He was in politics, so he's a little bit bigger of a name and gets some more attention. His disappearance isn't just your average disappearance. And she's asked to come back. And she struggles with it a little bit, but she does agree to make a quick trip back where she came from to help in this investigation of her father being missing. And there's a lot of family bitterness from her siblings, from her stepmother. There's a history. She had a boyfriend there. We're seeing flashbacks to her time as a teenager, and something went really, really badly in that relationship. We don't yet know exactly what that is. And there's a lot of interesting kind of mystery elements to this. So far, I would say I'm interested to keep going. I do have the audiobook from Macmillan Audio, and this is a gifted copy from Minotaur. It is one that I think I'm not 100% hooked on. Like, it's not hard to put it down, but I am really interested to see where the mystery takes it. Dolores is also a pathologist, and this kind of gives her an inroads into the mystery because they are a small town. They need help with the investigation. So there is a convenience there that she's a little bit more in the know than just a normal family member of someone who has gone missing. And as they find information, she's finding things out. So I am really interested to keep going. I would say it's going to be a pretty easy read to finish. So I will get my animal studies easily. And the cats on the cover just make it feel like a perfect animal studies type of book. So my goal for today is to keep going in this one, see how we find out how things turn out in the end. I'm hoping the action maybe will pick up a little bit towards the second half, and we'll start getting more and more answers as things go. So I can keep up with some crochet, I can keep up with my reading, and make it a good Sunday afternoon. Hello, Magical Readathon vlog. I have a couple updates for you. I've been out and about all day, so I got more audiobook time in than I really anticipated. So like I said, I have a couple updates. This evening I went to a bookstore event that a bookstore I hadn't been to yet, but it was on my list of ones I wanted to visit, which is Zibby's bookstore in Santa Monica. And they had an influencer event that I got invited to this evening, which was fun, just chatting to some fellow book fans, and got a few arcs out of it and had a mocktail, and it was a fun evening. It's not too bad of a drive for me. I didn't quite have the ability to get there on time, but I wasn't too late coming from work to get to Santa Monica. So that's good to know because they do a lot of fun events there. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to provide you with some updates. First off, I finished up No Rest for the Wicked for my animal studies book, and mixed feelings on this one. I think it did a lot of things really well. It talked about some really heavy topics. There are trigger warnings definitely tied to this that would be spoilery to tell you, but I would recommend looking them up if you have sensitive areas. We are following this main character, and she doesn't really remember things from before she left town very well, and what happened to her, what happened to drive a wedge into her family, and we get that kind of cleared up what's going on in here. I think it was handled relatively well, but I think you have to go into it knowing that there are dark topics. This cover to me gave a little more of an impression of a, maybe not cozy horror necessarily, but with the cats on the cover, that does play into the story. There are cats in the story, but I wouldn't say that was the bulk of the story or a focus of it. So do go into this one aware. I think the main character deals with a lot of issues, with a lot of things that come out of this, her failed past relationships and the traumas that went into that, and the family she left behind and is trying to potentially reconnect with. And I think a lot of that is really done well in here. All that said, I found it a little bit easy to put down. Like, I took a couple days off and kept having to remind myself I needed to pick it back up. And with that, I think it's getting a 3.5. I think that's where we're landing on it. And I think the author is certainly one that I would read from again. This is a debut, and therefore I look forward to seeing what they do next. So with that one done this morning, I did pick up my next book, which was to read a book where the cover matched my birth flower, being a October baby that is a marigold. And the book that I picked up, which I requested from NetGalley because I knew it was going to be a perfect color match for this prompt. And I probably should have done a little more research, but let's talk first. The title is Spread Me by Sarah Gailey. This is an author I've enjoyed before. She writes really interesting kind of psychological horror type things. And the premise of this one sounded definitely up my alley, but I probably should have looked at a few more reviews. This is set in a remote, like biodome almost type thing out in the desert, and people are studying. We are following a main character who's kind of got some level of being in charge of the 6 people who live there, and they have been stuck amongst themselves basically for quite a while now. They aren't entirely shut out of the world. They go out into the desert, they bring in samples to study, and so forth. It has a little bit of a dystopian feel to it. There's things outside. There's been pathogens in the world. It almost felt a little alien planet-like, but not really. As the book opens, there is a sandstorm looming. It's coming down on them very quickly, so they are in not panic mode, but in heavy duty, hurry up, get ready mode to be locked inside. Some of the people are outside of the dome, and they have found a really interesting creature, specimen of some sort. Because of the storm, because everything's kind of rushed, the creature comes inside with them, which wasn't really following protocol. And things go from there. Something weird gets introduced. It becomes an illness amongst the crew here. This is a very short read. It's only a little over 200 pages. I want to say like 5 hours on audio. I didn't really pay that much attention. I do have the audio arc for this one from NetGalley and Macmillan Audio, where this quickly goes off the rails. And this comes up in the first 20%, I would say, so I don't feel like it's super spoilery, and I feel like I can't really talk about the book without talking about this, is our main character is sexually attracted to viruses, and to each their own, but this book is extremely sexual. She is steering clear of the many pairings that are happening amongst the other people on the crew, the other 5 people there. We've got a lot of different representation going on in here. This group of people have spent a lot of time with each other, a lot of time naked with each other, and all this is going on. We learn quickly that she is very attracted to whatever this entity is that has been brought into their environment, and it goes from there. There are such interesting concepts in here. This creature, I don't even want to call it a creature, this thing that they bring in is really intriguing. The way it interacts with the people within this research group is very interesting. I'm trying to be vague because it's such a short book and I don't want to say too much, but I think there were a lot of really interesting elements to this, but it just wasn't a me book. If I hadn't spent so much time in my car today and it was such a quick audio, I probably wouldn't have finished it, in all honesty with you. Yeah, I don't even know how I would rate it because I don't think it's poorly written. I think it had such interesting concepts, and the psychological discussions within it were interesting. The kind of sci-fi horror mix is something that could absolutely work for me if it wasn't about sexual attraction and sex and everything else. So yeah, I finished the book. It got me the prompt completed. I think after the heavy content of my previous arc and then this one just really not being a me type of book, I am going a safer route potentially. My next book, I'm only like 5% in, so I don't want to jinx it yet, but it's a YA mystery type story. So I think that one's going to land better in this moment and be a nice break from the heavier stuff. And Kylie is extremely ready for attention after I got home super late tonight after the book event. So sorry for the squeaking. I'm gonna go, and I'll check in with you later. I am back. I had a relaxing evening last night after I got home. Just kind of hung out with Kylie, listened to some audiobook, and played with her. She had a lot of energy stored up and was going a bit crazy, as you started to hear before I stopped filming, I think. But it was a nice evening, and actually it's the first night in a very long time that I didn't need to run the AC to actually get a decent night's sleep. It's not going to stick. It's still going to be hot in California, but at least we're getting signs of cooling a little bit, so that makes me happy. And also the fact that I am enjoying my next book is making me happy. happy. I am about a little bit past 40% of the way into The Language of the Birds. This is by K.A. Merson. This is a gifted copy I received from Valentine. It came out in May, I think May 13th, at least according to the spine of this one. I didn't get the arc in time to read it before that, and then it kind of got buried, unfortunately, in that massive August book haul that I procrastinated filming. So that's why I'm running late on this one. But this is a YA mystery, and so far I'm having a good time with it. We are following a young woman named Arizona. She's 17. She's neurodivergent. I don't know that it's been explicitly stated, but I'm guessing she's on the autism spectrum. She has talked about that she's super hypersensitive to sound. Like she's trying to listen to the radio, but the level 35 is too quiet, level 36 is too loud. Or she can't concentrate if there's too much buzzing of fluorescent lights. She turns the lights off in somebody's office for them without permission, but then she explains why. So we're following her. She and her mother are basically on a family trip. They have been essentially living out of an RV, and they've recently lost her father. So she's dealing with the grief of that. And then they are in this national park type of place, and her mother doesn't come back. And she reports it to the Forest Service, and there's a search. They don't find anything. Turns out she actually gets a note. Her mother's actually been taken, and the people who took her need something from her. Her father and her also were particularly good with puzzles and ciphers and numbers and letters, and they need her to figure something out. So she's following all of these clues to try to figure out what she needs to do to get her mother back. And as you're going through the book, you get these pages. Can't tell if it's focusing, where you're getting the puzzles she's looking at, and she's talking you through different things. She's trying to solve things. This is taking her to places and having to think through different things, and I'm finding it very interesting. I don't know that these are the type of puzzles necessarily where I would pause the book and try to solve it myself, because I don't think I would ever get there. But it's really interesting because she thinks through her process, what she's doing, why she's doing different things, why certain letters should mean certain things, and I find it very interesting. This is definitely a much more me-coded book than my previous one. So this is going really well. I do like our main character. I feel very protective of her in the sense that I am extremely worried about anyone she comes in contact with who seems nice to her, that I feel like they're in on it. That's probably a stretch to think they're all in on it, because she is running into different people in different places. It's her and her dog, which I appreciate as well. Love a good animal companion, and they are out there. She's got a motorcycle her parents gave her with a sidecar for the dog, which is adorable. My motorcycles are a little scary, but still adorable. And I am eager to continue on with this today. It's been a very quick read. I just started it on the way home last night and made it by now this morning to 40-something%. So it's going well, and I'm glad to have this one. This might be our final book. I might try to fit in one more before I wrap this up. We'll see how the week goes and how accommodating work is to allow me to get some audiobook time in, but I'll let you know for sure once I'm done with this one. It is Thursday morning now, and I do have some updates for you, and we are, spoiler alert, going to be wrapping up the vlog here. I mean, I know you can kind of tell from the time we're at, but any case, I finished up The Language of the Birds, and I had a fun time with this one. I really like the puzzle aspect of it and getting to decode things along with our main character. I like the fact that she is neurodivergent, but also that's not a big handicap for her in the midst of the story. She has a couple of moments where things impact her. A particular noise has her kind of curling up a little bit and having to get through it and get past it, but it shows that she does get past it. It's something that's a momentary thing that she has to deal with, she has to cope with, and then she can move on. She's very capable. She handles emergency situations well, and for a teenager and for a person who is struggling with some of the outside kind of impacts on her life, I really liked her as a main character. I like that she got to make some friends along the way, that not everyone was untrustworthy, although there were some. And I liked the fact that she was able to solve kind of these mysteries and get some answers and so on and so forth. So this is landing at a solid 4-star read for me. I'm glad that I picked it up, even if I was a little late on the ARC train for this, and ending this vlog basically on a good note. I did start to pick up Black River Orchard with the idea that I could cram this in and add one more book to this vlog, and then it has the same narrator as Spread Me, and that was just a little too soon. I need a little bit of distance before I go back into another super long audiobook with the same narrator. So I'm gonna pick this back up later in the month, maybe get it into a different vlog if I possibly can, but either way, I am gonna put this down and just figure this is a sign to go ahead and wrap this vlog up here. Also, I didn't mention it, I don't think, in this vlog, but I did finish up The Angel of Indian Lake and had a really good time with it. Again, not going to say much about it in this particular vlog for the fact that this is the end of a trilogy, but Stephen Graham Jones really picked up the action in this one, did not pull punches with who was getting hurt, what was happening, and I really, really enjoyed this one. This wound up being a solid 4 to 4.5 for me. So just to give it kind of an idea of how I'm doing overall on my Magical Readathon reading, we are a third of the way through the month, and so far, as part of my Readathon Rebellion from Melonor Reads, I read October Film Haunt by Michael Vihan. This one didn't work so well. You can check out that vlog for information, but it did fulfill the inscription prompt to read a prime number of letters in the title. Also in that vlog, I read To Clutch a Razor by Veronica Roth. This one fulfilled the Alchemy prompt to read a book with a sun on the cover. And also in that vlog, I read House of Idol by Delilah S. Dawson, which did work really well for me, and that one was for inscription, and it had an animal, a unicorn, on the cover. And then in this vlog, I did make it through a stack of books as well. Not all of them went well, but I did have some definite wins in here and had a good time reading them. So all told, with my required reading, I have 5 books left. So I'm in good position to knock things out of the park. I think this month I'm going to definitely be picking some of the rest of these up soon. Some I'm going to hold for the end of the month. Some I definitely have plans to pick up for the Readathon Rebellion to overlap with some prompts over there. So we're off to a good start, and as always, I'm having a ton of fun with the Magical Readathon. Let me know in the comments below, are you participating? How has the month gone with your reading so far, whether you're participating or not? Or have you read any of these books? Are any of them on your TBR? I'd love to know all the things. And if you've made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, leave me a bird emoji for the language of the birds to let me know you were here. If you could hit that like button below, I would surely appreciate it, and subscribe if you're interested in more of my readathon reading, more of my book reviews, and more about bookish content in general. But for now, I'll leave you here and see you real soon in a new video.